flying on a wing and a prayer tonight.
It's been a day.
It has been.
Bummer of a day. I was supposed to get a new button maker today.
Yes, you were.
And they told me that there was an operational... What did it say? It said... If I could figure out how to work my phone.
Well, you're old.
An operational delay with the carrier. So, like, I don't know if the truck broke down or what. But instead of it being, like, a day later than it should be, like, they send another truck to pick up the stuff and carry on my wayward son, it's gonna be, like, an extra week.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Did you have to pay for shipping?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they should have to give you shipping.
I
back.
know.
That's crazy. Well...
I may not have had to pay for shipping because I may have still had my Prime trial thingy.
Oh, yeah. Alright.
So, I may not have had to pay for shipping, but still, it's still really obnoxious.
That is.
And an extra week seems...
ridiculous.
Yeah. It seems like a bit much.
It does. I agree. That's too much.
So, I've been playing with Shrinky Dinks instead.
Well, you do what you have to do in these difficult times.
I know.
Yep. Well...
Now we're having technical difficulties.
Yeah, we'll see. I had to put in I needed a new SD card because we filled up another one, but every time I tried to use it, it told me to insert an SD card, and I was like, but I did. So, we're recording directly to the computer and hoping there's enough space for it, so I guess we'll see.
Talk really fast.
Right. This story is actually not as long as last week's story. I think this one was like 5 pages or something, and the one last week was like 12.
Yeah.
So.
Because I'm a failure and didn't get my story done in time.
That's it. That's the one.
So.
I had to find something real quick.
Because I don't know. Like, I started to do my story, and then there was stuff that I hadn't looked at before that I felt like I needed to look at, and it was like not really in English. And so it was really hard to read, and there was a lot of it, and I was just like, this is going to take me more than a couple of hours.
Yeah.
To try to get through this. And so I was like, and I have nothing else, like, in my mind right now, and so.
Well, it's funny because I was listening to some podcasts about my case last night, and there were a fair few of them that were in French, and I was like, can't listen to these.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of things before we get started.
Okay.
One of them is a shout out to a listener. They didn't tell me whether I could say their name or not. I didn't ask though either. So we'll just say a listener named Leon, who sent us a story about their connection to the yogurt shop murders, which was not like they weren't there that night, but they were in the vicinity, and they almost went to the yogurt shop that night and like heard the sirens responding to the fire. And so that was like a crazy connection to that. So thanks for reaching out and telling us that. That was not cool, but I guess cool.
But, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. There's the better word. Another thing is a fun story. It's not really fun.
You can't say fun about death.
It's not death.
Oh.
But I don't even know how I found this story. But the headline of this article is 11-year-old arrested after violent crime spree in New Mexico.
Okay.
And so apparently this boy has ties to multiple, I said not deaths. I don't actually know if there's deaths. But it says multiple shootings and burglaries. But why I thought it was funny was it says the child was involved in stealing a Kia Forte earlier last month before he began participating in more destructive crimes. He was purportedly also associated with a group of kids who threw rocks at homes the following week to break into them. He hit a woman, I guess, with a rock when he was doing this. It prompted a 12-year-old girl to call 911, and the girl told police that the group of boys was known as the Kia Boys with a Z.
Oh.
So, that's why I thought it was funny, because they're the Kia Boys.
Kia Boys. He just wanted to do hood rat things with his friends.
Yeah. So, that was from June of last year.
Yeah.
Alright. Now, the other thing is not so fun. It's not the story, but it was something that showed up on my Facebook earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked into it a little more. So just quickly, there is a woman that's been missing from the Taos area for the last couple of weeks, I guess. She's from the little town south of Taos called, I know, my bed's so squeaky, called Ranchos de Taos. That's 4 miles south of Taos. Her name is Melissa Casillas. She's 53. She works for the Los Alamos National Laboratory. She's been missing since the afternoon of June 26th. What I read today was that she had gone to work that morning, but realized that, when she got there, that she had forgotten her, badge key card thing that would let her, access the building. And Los Alamos is, an hour away, and so she just decided to go home and work from home that day. I would say probably because that's a long frickin' drive to make twice. She took lunch to her daughter at the John Dunn House Shops, which is an outdoor shopping mall thing at the Taos Plaza. Mm-hmm. She left the area around 1 p.m. They know this because she was captured on CCTV footage. When her daughter arrived home that evening, she found that her mom wasn't there, but her phone, purse, wallet, and car keys were all there. There was an article in People magazine or on the website that someone reported that they saw her walking southbound alone along State Road 518 from Talpa, which is in that same area. And this was confirmed by Ring doorbell cameras along that road.
Yeah.
I saw a post on Facebook claiming that her personal and work phones had been reset, but there was a comment on that post from her stepdaughter that said that only Melissa's personal phone had been reset to factory settings, but they don't know why. Mm-hmm. Because, she worked for Los Alamos, so her work phone wouldn't have been erased. It would be too hard. It has too much security on it.
Yeah.
But that her personal phone had been reset. They don't know why. Another weird aspect is that the stepdaughter stated that Melissa and her husband Mark rode together to work because he also works at the National Lab, and that when she left, she didn't tell him that she was leaving work to go home. Mm-hmm. And in an update from July 1st on the stepdaughter's Facebook, but it also, I think she had reposted it from another post that the husband Mark and Melissa's daughter Sierra was tagged in.
Yeah.
Says that a tip came in that at about 2:20 p.m. a witness reported seeing a dark blue newer model 4-door Dodge truck leaving the area shortly after the witness saw Melissa walking. So according to the missing poster, and this missing poster was made by the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls group. But according to their poster, she's a 43-year-old Hispanic woman.
I thought we said 53.
53, sorry. I was reading that she's 5'4", and I said 54.
Oh, okay.
So she's 53. She's 5'4", weighs between 115 and 125 pounds. She has brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing blue jeans, a turquoise t-shirt, a maroon jacket, and gray and white tennis shoes. The poster says pink and white, but the post from the family's page that was on that update says gray and white. So, either. She has a dragon tattoo on her right ankle, a dream catcher on her left shoulder, and a bow and arrow on her left arm. She's considered to be a missing endangered person. So if you have any information on her disappearance or whereabouts, you can contact the New Mexico State Police at 505-425-6771. So,
well,
that sucks.
Let's hope it doesn't end up terribly, but...
Yep. There also, I guess, somebody set up a GoFundMe page saying that it was to raise money for a reward, but
Yeah.
her daughter posted, like, being really upset about it, saying that it wasn't run by the family and,
Yeah.
like, don't contribute to that, so don't contribute to that. We'll post the missing poster on our social media so everybody can see that. But anyway, you ready to hear another terrible story?
I guess so. Why not?
Okay. So, here's what I did for ideas for today's story,
Okay.
which is probably not a good idea. So, you know how my birthday is on Friday?
Yeah.
And you know how the date is July 11th?
Yeah.
So, I went online and I Googled serial killers born on July 11th.
All right.
I found two. One of them was from Michigan, like operating in like the 70s and 80s or something. I couldn't find a ton of information on that one, even though like it claims that he's as prolific as Ted Bundy or maybe more. I still couldn't find very much information on him, so I didn't go with that one.
That's weird.
I know. So, onward and upward. On February 28th, 1998, a man named Glenn Bennett called the police to report a crime. He claimed that he had witnessed two murders. He gave the police the address of a small basement apartment in a town called Moncton in New Brunswick, Canada.
Okay.
He said that's where the murder took place. He also gave them information on where they could find the murderer. So when police arrived at this apartment, they discovered something so horrific and traumatic that a special team of counselors had to be brought in to help the first responders on the case.
Yikes.
I know. So they found a woman dead on a bedroom floor with her throat cut and her nightgown pushed up around her head. And you can cover your ears if you need to on this one. They found a little girl hanging in a closet in another bedroom wearing only her underwear. So, the woman was 48-year-old Joan Hicks and her 11-year-old daughter Nina. Joan and Nina had recently moved to Moncton from Newfoundland, thank you. I don't know why my brain wasn't, like, it glitched. Which was, like, 1,100 kilometers or, like, 700 miles if you're us.
You're us losers.
So
we don't know how to work the metric system.
She made this move to be close to Dorchester Penitentiary.
Okay.
Why, you might ask?
I mean, who wants to be closer to a prison?
Right? Well, she apparently had a friend who she wrote to regularly that was, I assume, incarcerated in this prison. And the friend told her that there were a lot of guys in that prison who were lonely and would like to have letters written to them. So she started corresponding regularly.
So she wanted to save on postage?
Just put them all in one envelope and send them on. I don't know.
Well, I just mean, like, she wanted to be closer, so the postage was cheaper.
Well, okay. Well, I'll get there. So she started corresponding regularly with a man named Aubrey Sparks, who happened to be serving a life sentence for killing his wife.
Well, that's the kind of guy I want to
Yeah.
be close to.
So Joan soon fell in love with this man and wanted to be close enough to visit him regularly.
Yeah, because he murdered his wife.
Yeah.
So that makes me want to have romantic attachments to him.
I don't understand the psychology behind women and maybe men. I don't know, because you don't hear about it as often as you do with women. But, like, the psychology behind people, like, falling in love with murderers in prison. Mm-hmm. But it happens so often. So, I don't know. Her family tried to talk her out of going. They went so far as to ask the RCMP, the mounted police, to tell her that it was a bad idea. But she insisted on going. Joan's oldest daughter, who was already grown up at the time, tried to get her to stay, and Nina, the little girl, also seemed to not want to go. And this part is so sad. According to the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, before they moved, Nina gave her aunt a picture of herself and told her, if anything happens to me, put this picture up so people will be able to find me and bring me home.
Yeah, that's pitiful.
I know. She probably was like, my mom's in love with a prisoner. So
my mother is making terrible choices.
Yeah. So when Joan and Nina arrived in Moncton, they first lived in a homeless shelter. And so listen, I am not victim blaming, but this is just a PSA. If you are going to move anywhere, especially with your child, and you are moving of your own free will, and not because you are in danger or some other desperate situation, please secure a place to live before you move. Mm-hmm. Or have the means to live in a hotel, or have a friend to stay with, or something, while you're looking for a place to live.
Yeah.
So, anyway, while living in the shelter, Joan made friends with a woman named Tammy McLean and her boyfriend, Michael Wayne McGray. And I don't know how long Joan and Nina stayed at the shelter, but they eventually moved into that little basement apartment. And Tammy and Michael were regular visitors. They would hang out and party or whatever. So going back to February 28th, Tammy went over to Joan's apartment to talk about her relationship with McGray. She claimed that he had been drinking and doing a lot of drugs lately, and she was getting scared of him. And that same night, McGray happened to be hanging out with our witness, Glenn Bennett, the one who called the police. And Glenn told police that he and McGray had been drinking and mainlining cocaine all day. So I had to look up mainlining. Mm-hmm. Because, if you recall, I learned nothing in DARE.
Yes.
So, it's injecting a drug. Mm-hmm. And I know that people do that with heroin. I didn't know you did that with cocaine, because isn't cocaine the one that you sniff?
Yes, you sniff.
You sniff it.
It's the one you sniff.
Yeah. So, anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. We sit on my bed to record this, and it's being extra squeaky today. I don't know what's going on. We will try to keep our fidgeting to a minimum. But anyway, these guys were high as kites. So Glenn also told the police that evening, McGray told him he wanted to go find someone to kill. Well, just regular Saturday night activities.
Regular things you feel like doing in the evening.
It's a Saturday night. What do we do? So Glenn was like, okay, yeah, whatever, and walked around with McGray. And I guess at this point, he said that he wasn't entirely sure that McGray was serious. And so they, literally were just walking the streets looking for somebody that just seemed like an easy
for a person that
target.
They felt like killing.
Yeah. They didn't find anybody. And so McGray was like, hey, I know a place. And they go to Joan's apartment. Mm-hmm. And they find Tammy there. And McGray tells Tammy to scram. And that he's going to hang out and party with Joan and Nina. Nina was 11.
Nina doesn't want to party with you guys.
No, Nina wants to go home to her aunt.
She wants to be safe.
Yeah. So, Glenn claims that after Tammy left, McGray flew into a frenzy, grabbed Joan by the throat, slammed her into the wall, and choked her until she passed out. Then he
Good guy.
He's the best. Then he started beating her before cutting her throat with a serrated bread knife. And now our old friend Glenn claims that he was just paralyzed in horror and could do nothing more than watch. So while McGray does confess to the murder of Joan, he refuses, he's still alive, to confess to the murder of Nina. And claims that Glenn murdered Nina. And Glenn's like, nuh-uh, McGray did it. But whichever dirtbag was responsible, she was strangled with a belt on her bed and then hung by a rope in her closet.
Cute.
Yeah. So, 2 hours later is when Glenn calls the police. And remember, he told them where to find McGray. Mm-hmm. So, he was found and arrested and immediately confessed to Joan's murder. They didn't have to even, try. They just confessed. All right.
No coercion necessary.
Yeah, no. So, some background on this disgusting human. Michael Wayne McGray was born on July 11th, 1965 in Collingwood, Ontario. The family moved to Argyll, Nova Scotia when he was a child, and this is where he grew up. And by his own account, Michael claims that his father was a raging alcoholic who beat him often. Michael McGray is one of those killers that just likes to talk and talk and talk and talk and tell you all of the things in the whole world. So, Michael was an angry child, and he was constantly getting into fights at school. And he was eventually sent to St. Brutus's Secure Center for Incurably Criminal Boys.
Yes.
It was actually called Shelburne School for Boys, but it basically the same thing.
Yes.
Michael claims that he was repeatedly sexually abused during his time at the school. And so, can you guess what happens next in the life of Michael McGray?
I don't really want to.
Well,
I'm sure it's not great.
it's not. He starts torturing and killing animals.
Yeah.
So cover your ears for a minute if you need to. He started with killing birds and then ducks. He would kill the ducks with his bare hands until one duck fought back and hurt him. And so then he stole a knife from school and started using that.
Groovy.
Yeah. I don't know when he was sent to St. Brutus's, but there is a podcast called Dark Poutine, which was great, by the way. And they claim that the animal murder was when he was like 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And Michael claims that the thrill of killing the animals was starting to wear off. And so he decided he wanted to give killing people a go. You know?
Yeah, you know.
So, I don't really know where we are age-wise here. Mm-hmm. But Michael claims that his first murder occurred in 1985 when he was 19. So, October 6, 1985, a hunter and his dog were walking along a logging road in a wooded area near Weymouth, Nova Scotia. And unfortunately, they did not find any gold.
No.
Or a $100 billing on the ground.
No.
What they did find were the skeletal remains of Elizabeth Gale Tucker, who was a 17-year-old who had been missing since, like, end of April, beginning of May.
Yeah.
And it didn't appear that there had been any attempt to hide her. Her clothes were in a pile nearby. She was identified via dental records, and it was determined that she had been stabbed to death. Gale, which is what she went by, had gotten a job at a fish processing plant on the west coast of Nova Scotia. And this was about 250 kilometers, or again for the United Statesmen, 155 miles from her home in Dartmouth. I don't know why a 17-year-old is going 150 miles away to work. But anyway.
Who knows?
So her friend Bonnie had taken all of her luggage ahead to this place. And Gail left her mom's house on April 24th to hitchhike to Matagan, maybe is how you pronounce that.
Maybe. Where
her new job was. So, according to Dark Poutine, which I got a lot of my information from this podcast, and especially about the early life of McGray and this information about Gail. So her mom was not super crazy about the idea of her hitchhiking so far and offered to buy her a bus ticket. But the bank was closed because it was like 5 o'clock and Gail had ants in her pants, which seems to be a running theme on our podcast. And she didn't want to wait until the next day, and so she left. Mm-hmm. And I understand that there were not debit cards in 1985.
Right.
But I don't know why her mom couldn't have written a check to the bus company, because you could still write checks in 1985.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless she was, like, just out of checks. Because I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me. But that's what appears to have happened. So, police were able to track Gail by talking to drivers who came forward to say that they had given her rides. And the last place she was seen was in the town of Weymouth, which is, like, just, like, 19 miles from where she was going. Mm-hmm. Well, like, she was just right there. Mm-hmm. Several suspects were identified and ruled out, and the case seemed to go cold until 1998, when Michael McGray was arrested for Jones and Nina's murders, and he confessed to killing Gail in 1985. So I listened to another podcast that was put on by the CBC. It was about another crime, but, like, it included him because I guess he's suspected of being the killer in that other crime.
Okay.
But it's like a multi-part podcast, and so I just listened to the episode that was just strictly about this.
Like, not to give the guy any credit or anything, but he seems like he would confess if he were.
Well, the problem is that he confessed to these, but then he, like, tells them that he's killed a bunch of other people, and they need to meet his terms and conditions before he confesses to them.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's not given the rest of them up. So, I'm pretty sure he confessed the murder of Gail to a reporter at the CBC.
Mm-hmm.
He was being interviewed after his arrest, and he had claimed to have killed more people than Nina and Joan.
Right.
And the journalist was basically like, I don't know why we should believe you. Like, other killers have said that they've killed lots of people, and there's no way to prove it,
mm-hmm.
you know? And so he tells her about the murder of Gail Tucker. He claims that he was driving around with a friend. Now, the friend has never been named or identified,
mm-hmm.
and even his defense attorney later does not believe that the story of the friend is true.
Right.
He doesn't even think that the friend existed. But he claims he was driving around with a friend when he saw Gail hitchhiking in April of 1985 near Weymouth. He picked her up. Then he requested that she perform oral sex as payment for the ride. She no-ed him.
Yeah.
And he got angry, drove out to, like, the wooded area where she was found, tore off her clothes, raped her, and then stabbed her to death.
Stand-up guy.
The best. So he says that she was fighting him the entire time, so it sounds like she had a pretty violent and horrific death. And then he just left her there because he's a disgusting excuse for a human being.
Yeah.
So he didn't stop with the confessions, though. In our interviews, he is a self-proclaimed serial killer, and again, just needed to talk. So, McGray says that after killing Gail, between 1985 and 1987, he drifted from the east coast of Canada to the west coast, just kind of bopping around. And on November 1987, he was back on the east coast, specifically in New Brunswick. On November 4th, McGray claims that he and two friends, Mark Gibbons and Norm Warren, that didn't roll off the tongue very well,
mm-hmm.
Decided that it would be fun to rob a cab driver. So again, just regular just Saturday night activities.
Just things you choose to do on a slow night.
Yeah. So Gibbons gets into the front seat of this cab. McGray and Warren get into the back. And when they get to the destination that they told the cabbie to take them to, Gibbons pulled out a knife and told the cabbie that they were robbing him. So I guess the cabbie, started to reach for something in his jacket or something,
mm-hmm.
and Gibbons stabbed the man in the hand. And then I guess they freaked out, and they all got out of the cab and ran away.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily, this one did not end in the cabbie's
right.
murder. They, I guess, ran away in the direction of the Market Square Mall.
Mm-hmm.
The cabbie called the police. They come out. They're looking for these three guys. At the same time, a janitor finds the body of Mark Gibbons, who had been stabbed once in the chest. Remember, he's the one who stabbed the cabbie in the
right.
hand. The police didn't find the other two guys, but they also didn't even really know who they were looking for. And the next day, McGray and Warren called the police to report their friend Mark missing. And the cops are like, we aren't falling for your ruse.
Right.
So they traced the call back to an apartment on Germain Street and arrested Warren and McGray. In 1998, when he was doing all of his confessing, he admits that he murdered Mark Gibbons while the men were arguing over the botched robbery. However, at the time of the murder, he told police that it was Warren who had murdered him, and Warren had already been to prison once for violent crimes, and so they were like, well, yeah, that probably was him. And he was tried, but he was acquitted of the murder, but he was convicted of robbery and sentenced to 11 years in prison. McGray was sentenced to just 5 years for the robbery.
Okay.
So in 1991, while he was still imprisoned in a minimum security prison in Quebec, he somehow got a 3-day pass to visit Montreal for the Easter holiday.
I never understand that.
I don't know if prisoners are still given passes to leave prison,
Mm-hmm.
but I was just like, whether they believed that he was innocent of the murder, he still participated in an aggravated robbery.
Yeah.
Like, they were trying to rob a cab driver at knife point.
Yeah.
And so, still seems a little violent, but, whatever. So, he was told he had to check into a halfway house in Montreal while he was on this vacation. That Saturday, March 30th, he visited a gay bar and struck up a conversation about hockey with a 59-year-old retired school teacher named Robert Astley. Astley invited the 26-year-old McGray back to his condo where they drank and watched TV. In his confession, McGray says he fell asleep on the couch and woke up about 6 a.m. He took a knife from the kitchen, went into Astley's bedroom where the man was, just getting dressed for the day.
Yeah.
And told him to lay on the floor. And Astley, laughed because he thought McGray was joking because they had been, palling around the night before. And this made McGray angry. And he hit Astley over the head with a lamp and then stabbed him 16 times in the chest and throat.
That's not overkill at all.
So, again, just regular Saturday night activities. But, I guess technically this was Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So.
Just what you do before you eat your Wheaties.
Yeah. So, he claims that he grabbed a bottle of alcohol and then calmly consulted a map and headed back to the quote-unquote gay village. Robert Astley was found 8 days later by his brother Rudy. Sunday night, so I guess we're on Easter now.
Okay.
He meets a salesman named Gaten Ethier in another gay bar. And they chatted about a hockey game that they were excited to watch. This one's for Amy. So apparently it was the Montreal Canadiens versus the Quebec Nordique. It was supposed to be a good game.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the Montreal Canadiens, imagine your mascot is just one of your fellow countrymen.
Yes.
Whatever. So Ethier invited McGray to his apartment to watch the game.
What does he do when he's in there?
I don't know, jumps on your bed or something. So they hung out on the sofa bed, drank wine, watched the game. McGray claims that Ethier made a pass at him that McGray refused, and so Ethier was just like, meh, whatever, and went to sleep. Mm-hmm. He said that he stayed up all night watching this guy sleep. Like a freaking creep.
Yeah, not creepy at all.
And at 6 a.m., again, 6 a.m., I don't know, smashed a beer bottle over Ethier's head and then stabbed him with a knife from the kitchen. Ethier apparently woke up and started fighting back. And McGray says that he stabbed him multiple times to ensure that he was dead. Then he grabbed a bottle of wine and split.
Well, that seems to be his MO.
Yeah. And so, remember, he was only on a 3-day vacation from prison. Mm-hmm. So it's now Monday morning and he's supposed to be back. But the honor system doesn't work when you're working with a dishonorable person.
Right.
So he left Montreal. And McGray was arrested a couple of weeks later. However, they had no idea about the murders. Mm-hmm. So I guess he was still released on time, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
From his 5 years that he was serving. Mm-hmm. And then from then until 1998, he was once again just bopping around the country. And this is when he hooked up with Tammy and then eventually brutally murdered Joan and Nina.
Right.
And he was arrested for the final time. So after a 60-day psychiatric evaluation, McGray was determined fit to stand trial. He didn't end up going to trial because he just pled guilty to Joan's murder. Mm-hmm. The charge for Nina's murder was stayed. This just means that they put it on hold, but they didn't dismiss it. And probably the only thing I could think with that is that maybe because there wasn't any real evidence that could conclude which of the men killed her, mm-hmm. He was sentenced to life in prison with the chance of parole after 25 years. I'm like, please don't let him out.
Well, I was already going to say, don't you like stories about bad people who end up doing terrible, terrible things because they don't get put in prison for long enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
it seems to be a common theme in a lot of these stories is bad guy goes to jail for not nearly as long as bad guy should go to jail. then bad guy gets let out of jail and does even worse things.
Yep. Well, so like I told you earlier, McGray was a self-proclaimed serial killer. I love that he just was like, so I'm a serial killer.
Yes.
I'm like, says
Let me
who?
toot my little horn here.
I'm like, you're a dork is what you are. An evil dork.
Evil dork, yes. There's a distinction there.
But I'm like, why? Like, who just goes, hi, I'm a serial killer? Like, I don't know. It just seemed really stupid to me. And he told police that, this is what I was telling you a minute ago. He told police that he would confess to 11 other murders that he allegedly committed in Canada and in the Seattle area. But he had some conditions. He wanted immunity for the crimes. He wanted immunity for anyone else that he implicated in the crimes. And he wanted psychiatric help to help him deal with his overwhelming need to kill. And the police basically were like, we don't negotiate with terrorists. And they refused his deal. I mean, maybe get him the psychiatric help.
Right.
But
in a facility for the rest of his life.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was listening to Dark Poutine, one of the guys was like, what would it matter if he had immunity or not for the other crimes, because he was already serving a life sentence? But they were saying that he probably was afraid of getting extradited to the United States, where there was the possibility that he would get the death penalty. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that was why he was asking for immunity for the other crimes. So after verifying facts of Gail Tucker's, Robert Astley's, and Gayton, I don't know how to say his name, Ethier's murders, McGray was charged with their murders. And in April and May of either 2000 or 2001, just depending on the source I looked at, he pled guilty. He was sentenced to 3 additional concurrent life sentences at a maximum security prison in New Brunswick. And there's more.
Oh, good.
I know. But wait, there's more.
Oh, wait.
So, is it still going?
I was just checking.
I know. I'd always forget to look at it. On November 22nd, 2010... the prison went into lockdown looking for a metal bracket that was missing from a ping pong paddle. And so I guess when they go into lockdown, they lock all the cells. They do a count of the prisoners.
Right.
And then they go do whatever, like they're searching, whatever they need to do. So after the lockdown ended, Michael McGray calls the guards for help, claiming that his cellmate wouldn't wake up. And they found 33-year-old Jeremy Michael Phillips quite dead. He was face down, cold, and rigor mortis had already set in. Mm-hmm. From what I could tell, this lockdown lasted like an hour. Right. So there's no reason why this guy, I don't know, maybe. Because he claims, like, he admitted that he killed Phillips. Mm-hmm. But he claims that it happened after, like, the cell count, which was only like an hour before. So I don't know why he would already be so dead. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it was cold in there or something. I don't know. Hot in there?
I don't know.
You would think I hadn't read 1,000 books. But anyway.
I think we know more about dead things by now.
So again, he did admit to killing Phillips. He claimed that he claimed he killed Phillips, that he forced the man to lay down. He bound his hands and feet with bed sheets that he had shredded. He blindfolded Phillips, shoved a sock in his mouth, and then strangled him with a bed sheet. He was then moved
for funsies.
Saturday night activities. I actually didn't look to see what November 22nd, 2010 was. Let's look. Because all the other crimes were Saturdays. Yeah. Like, literally they were. Let's see. What day of the week was November 22nd? Oh my gosh. That one was a Monday.
He had a case of the Mondays.
That's it. He was then moved to St. Anne de Plain Institution, which is said to be the highest security prison in Canada, and he was not given a cellmate this time. Yeah. So in addition to all of these crimes, Michael McGray also claims to have kidnapped and murdered 15-year-old Kimberly Ann Amara, who went missing from St. John, New Brunswick in September of 1985. However, police searched for her where Michael claims to have left her, and their search yielded nothing. Kimberly's still missing and her case is still unsolved. He also claimed to have killed unhoused people and sex workers, but I don't know that he's ever named names, and he probably doesn't even know names. And you know that police often overlook those crimes, so I don't think anything has ever been tied to him as far as those go. He was also looked at as a suspect in a couple of murders that were initially believed to have been connected to the Green River Killer in the Seattle area and Robert Pickton in Canada, but I don't think they ever had any evidence to prove those definitively. And that's the horrible tale of a man I'm ashamed to share a birthday with.
Yeah.
Now I have some trivia for you.
Hopefully he has a terrible birthday.
I hope he has a terrible birthday, too. I hope somebody shinks him with a toothbrush in the leg.
Yeah.
Anyway, trivia. You want some trivia?
I mean, sure.
Do you know which astrological signs have the most serial killers?
Well, I'm going to go with Cancers.
Okay.
But I don't know.
So, according to an article on Stylecaster,
Scorpios.
There are 4 signs. 3 of them surprised me. They are Cancer, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Scorpio.
Yeah.
So these 4 signs make up almost 40% of known serial killers. Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio, the 3 water signs, account for 28% of killers and 27% of known victims. And so apparently we water signs are dangerous creatures. I had no idea.
I know.
I would think Gemini.
Right.
But Gemini and Taurus combined make up only 11%. Capricorn has more total victims on average than any other sign, about 800 people. Virgo has the least number of victims. And a quote from Stylecaster says, "Many people who follow astrology likely won't be surprised to find Scorpio at the top of this list, given that the sign's biggest weaknesses include violence, manipulation, and jealousy."
So I went ahead and added Scorpio.
Yeah. But... Similarly, Pisces may be prone to allowing their outer emotions to run out of control.
I was going to say, we're pretty emotional.
While Cancer may feel isolated as they are unable to blend in with the world around them. And Sagittarius approaches life with no filter on their words or actions. And if anyone is wondering how they arrived at their numbers, they said that they gathered a data set of 485 serial killers with known birth dates and used the FBI's definition of a serial killer, which is a person who commits 2 or more murders in separate events. The end.
The end. Well, that one was relatively short compared to some of our last ones.
It was. Yeah. Not fun.
No.
But short.
So, update.
Hold on. Look at the lizard.
I know. I see her.
She's so sleepy. Okay, update. Sorry.
My button maker is supposedly in New Mexico now.
Whoa. I'll believe it when I see it.
Exactly. It still says expected by the 13th, which is a Sunday.
That is a Sunday. So unless they're, like, doing the thing where they're like, we're so sorry, here you go on Sunday.
We're going to bring it to you anyway.
But I can't imagine because they aren't sorry for anything.
No, they're not sorry about anything. But yeah, it's still... But I'm just trying to figure out why it would still be expected by Sunday when it's in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Like, just bring it over here.
Because does UPS stuff have to go back to Texas before?
Mm-mm.
I didn't think so. So wouldn't it just be here, like, tomorrow?
You would think. I mean, I know they probably, like, go to Albuquerque to, like, sort.
It's already in Albuquerque.
And send things different ways. But usually once it goes to Albuquerque, it comes straight here.
Yeah.
There have been times when I'm just like, no wonder shipping charges cost so much, because you'll have something that ships from, like, California or Arizona, like on FedEx or UPS, it goes clear across New Mexico to Dallas.
Yeah.
And then comes back to Albuquerque, and I'm like, you were already on that interstate going through that town. Why didn't you drop it off while you were there before you went to Dallas?
This one went from Memphis to Oklahoma to New Mexico.
I guess we'll see.
I'm just annoyed with the post lately.
Mm-hmm.
It's been more trouble than it's worth.
Usually. All right. Well, we have social media.
We do. We have several social medias.
I think most of them are Twisted and Mysterious.
Yes.
I think
Threads, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
I steadfastly still call it Twitter.
Yes. I think most people do.
What did I tell you? It's Twist Miss Pod.
Yes.
And I think Blue Skies is different too because there was like a character limit on the thing there. Mm-hmm. But we have a link tree and you can find all of our things there. All of our
thingies on our link tree.
You can even find a link to our TikTok that we do not post anything to.
We have yet to post anything to. We'll work on that in the future.
Yep.
We're tired and overwhelmed.
Always. Okay, so anyway.
Once we get past this week, and then the next one.
Yeah.
And then the next one. And then the next one.
Yeah. Next week I'll catch up. Until I don't. Yeah. We have email.
Yes, which we finally got an email. I mean, I know we already talked about it, but I'm just saying, like, we finally got an email.
Twisted and Mysterious Podcast at gmail.com. I was looking at our map.
Okay.
We don't have any penguins yet.
No.
But I was noticing that there is a large landmass that doesn't have any dots on it.
Mm-hmm.
It is the landmass known as China. China has like a billion gazillion people.
Mm-hmm.
You would think like one of them would listen.
And we have like Singaporean listeners or whatever.
Singapore. We have a New Zealand.
I just mean as far as like Asia goes. Like,
yeah.
We've got like
Pakistan.
Singapore.
Yeah. But yeah, none of the billions of people in China. It was weird.
Alright, step it up, China.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, probably.
Let's see.
I wouldn't like us either.
I
don't like us.
Greenland and Iceland also. So, Greenland, don't be mad at us. We didn't send JD Vance to your country.
No.
So, if you want to listen to us, you can. And I think that's everything. Is that everything?
I think so. I think we're a little boring this week.
Yeah, we are.
I'm tired.
Yeah, well, we're always tired.
I know, but I'm like extra tired, and I just kind of feel meh.
Yeah. My head is hurt like every day this week. And it hurts right now. Which people probably get sick of hearing me say that.
They're probably like, hey girl, go to the doctor.
Right. And they're probably like, hey girl, take a nap.
We do. They don't help.
They don't help. Alright, well, that is all.
There is something seriously wrong with us.
Now, who wants to put money on whether or not Faren writes a story for next week?
It may not be the one that I've been planning on writing because I don't know how far I can get through this old Scottish text.
Just ask David Tennant to help you. I'm sure he's available for these things.
I don't understand what happened in the land of language. Like, alphabetically to begin with, why there were letters that we used to use that we no longer use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can understand getting rid of them because they were pointless.
Yeah.
But why did we use them to begin with? There's like this thing that looks like an F, but it's an S, but they also use an S.
Yeah. And
so it's like, if it's two S's next to each other, it'll be the F thing and then a regular S, and I'm just like...
Well, FFS.
And then, like, Scottish people wrote things...
Maybe it's just FFS.
Yes. But Scottish people wrote things weird, like, they used a lot of QUs in place of W, because they wanted... I think the website that I was reading last night when I was trying to figure out what this one word was saying that they wanted it to be, like, they wanted it to be known that you pronounced it with a different sound than...
Could you, like... I know that I talk about ChatGPT a lot, but could you, like, copy and paste it in ChatGPT and see if she could translate it for you?
I can't copy and paste it. It's a picture of a document.
You can upload documents to her.
But it's a picture of many documents because they're old documents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting here trying to translate
You're gonna
Old
be fluent
Scottish.
in Old Scottish. Does Old Scottish have a name?
I don't know. I just know it's not Old English because they're Scottish.
Yeah. Is it like Gaelic or something?
I don't know because it's not like another language. It's English.
Mm.
It's just
Yeah.
spelled and pronounced funny. And so, like, they spelled the word devil Divell.
Okay.
And
So maybe it's just somebody who spells really bad.
well, and I wondered that too. I mean, because you have to also take into account the literacy at the time. And so I'm trying to get through all of these weirdly spelled words. But like I said, the Q thing is a thing. Because I found a website when I was trying to figure out what this word was.
Mm-hmm.
The word ended up being witch, but it like witch thing, not like a spooky witch.
Oh, too bad it wasn't a spooky witch.
But like it ended up being the word witch, but it's spelled like, and I'm gonna screw this up because I can't remember because it's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Quuhilk or something like that. And I'm like,
Quilk.
I'm like,
Totally.
that clearly says witch.
Absolutely it does.
I understand that says witch.
Yeah, of course it does.
What else could it say?
It's exactly what it is.
But apparently it's not a matter of misspelling, it's how they spelled the word.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I found a website that was explaining some of it, but it was also hard to follow. But I was just like, wow, this is very convoluted. And
maybe you could have Bear read the website and he could translate it in the same way that he tried to teach me how to solve a Rubik's Cube earlier.
yeah, I would get nowhere because nothing that came out of his mouth made any sense.
But maybe he would understand it because he understands not very good instructions.
Yes. But anyway, so I may be saving this story for a later date and coming up with something else because I got really overstimulated and overwhelmed and I was just like, this is too much. I can't do this. And I went to bed.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else.
Yeah. So, penguins and social media and people in China need to listen to our podcast. So, barring anything else, remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.